10 years or prior to the last year, I lobbied with the State Firearms Association Wisconsin Force. I don't miss this at all. Just so you know that, and I feel sorry for all of you having to sit through all day. I'm not going to give you any statistics or twisted facts or misinterpretations of the Constitution. I will mention, somebody had mentioned that you're supposed to represent all constituents, whether they agree with you or not. But part of what your oath when you're sworn into office is to uphold the Constitution. That's the number one thing. That represents every single constituent. So again, no surveys, no misleading things, no twisting what Supreme Court justices say or didn't say. I take it out of context. It's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to testify in support of this, and I just want to make a couple points on things that were stated today, and then I'll answer any questions if you have them. I'm glad I'm seeing you today, but you probably won't see me back because I don't miss this at all. First of all, innocent people, law-abiding citizens. We heard that on both sides the whole day. Law-abiding citizens means you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. Unfortunately, that seems to be the case with a lot of things, not just firearms, but everything we do. If you're the law-abiding citizen, you try to do the right thing, you're always having to prove yourself. The criminals seem to have more rights than we do, which is, I think, a sad statement for the way things are. As far as signs go, we had this discussion at my local bank when we passed concealed carry. They were discussing whether they were going to post signs to prevent it. And I pointed out to them, if that sign's going to stop somebody from coming in with a gun to rob the place, just make the sign say no robberies. It makes absolutely no sense. Same thing with the school grounds now. We're restricting law-abiding citizens from coming onto the property, but the criminals aren't going to look for that sign anyway. They're worried about posting the signs up. We're worried about this law helps protect innocent people from making mistakes, dropping off your grandkid at the school without having to go home and be defenseless during that time, or to stop somewhere and unload and lock up that firearm. The bad guys don't care about that. They're just going to come onto the school grounds. I want my grandkids safe, but I want teachers to be able to carry. I want people there to protect. One thing I noticed of interest, that ALICE system doesn't say anything about stopping the threat. I found that very interesting, that they're supposed to tell people and evacuate, but how about stopping the actual threat before something bad happens? I was curious, and I'm unfortunately Senator Taylor's gone, about branding people. I thought that was kind of interesting that she was going to put letters on their forehead as far as felons and convicted felons. And also on that wall, Senator Risser, if you get with President Trump, you might be able to get a deal on putting a wall around the state to keep, so we can control our border for those people coming from out of state. I will say I spent this whole last weekend shooting with people, most of them from Illinois that were from out of state, that travel into the state that compete with us all the time. They're no different than you and I. Now, we all know we're better than the people in Illinois, but it's not actually true. There are some very good people down there also. The training portion, I've been doing self-defense training for over 30 years, from empty hand through firearms. Every bit of training is person-specific, and that's why mandated training doesn't fit. My 85-year-old mother doesn't need the same training that I do, and that's why it's up to the individual to get what they need. Also, how much they travel. She lived in Gillette. If you don't know where Gillette is, you can spit almost and hit the other end of town in Gillette. It's a small town. Does she need to defend herself there? Possibly, but it's different than people that have in Appleton or Green Bay, even little town of Pulaski where I'm from. So it's something that it really needs to be for the individual, and they need to get the training that they feel they need. Paul Revere's, or actually the restrictions on powder and projectiles was mentioned several times. Most people don't realize that Paul Revere was yelling, "The redcoats are coming to get your powder." That was where the restriction was from, part of the Revolutionary War. So again, it's important to check your history and don't take and misquote things to further your cause. We all want to protect our kids. but restricting law-abiding citizens is not the way to do that. And the feelings, a lot of feelings are always brought up. They want to feel safe. Well, there's no way for them to feel safe and for me to feel safe. Whose feelings outweigh the other? We regulate free speech. You guys have mentioned that. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. But I would say you're irresponsible if you don't yell fire in a crowded theater if there is a fire. And it's the same way at firearms. We are heavily regulated. If you misuse your firearm, that's a regulation. Carrying it in my pocket doesn't change anything. When I misuse it, that regulation, that law makes the difference. That's where I now have violated those rights. Just carrying it does not do that. The right to self-defense is a God-given right if you believe in God. I was kind of interested in the different perspectives. The right to defend yourself, to defend the innocent. When I read the Bible, and maybe I misread the Bible too, because there seems to be different interpretations than that, protecting the innocent is part of what I feel is my responsibility. And that's what I feel this law will help do, is help people protect the innocent. It isn't going to affect the bad guys other than the fact that you have more people protecting the innocent. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your long day. And like I said, I don't miss that at all. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, I don't get too much questions because I want to hear some more. But did I hear you say that you supported teachers being able to carry?
Oh, sure. Any law-based, you think you can, when I give my grandkid to you, I want to know he's safe.
But
Why
no,
wouldn't you want the teacher?
That's right. I wrote that down, and I wanted to be sure that's your. Okay, let me go one step further. I represent a university area. Would you allow the students at the university to carry guns in their classes? Sure.
If they are legal to carry them, yes.
So you would, I can tell you that the people I represent at the university are not particularly happy with that idea. They don't want students in their class with guns. After all, the student might disagree with the teacher and get mad all of a sudden, and boom.
Well, you know, I know people talk about people like that, and I actually bounced at some pretty rough bars in my younger days, and I really never had that experience with kids. I guess kids aren't as responsible as they used to be. I went through high school with a 12-gauge shotgun in my trunk because we duck hunt at Collins March every day after school. Think about where I'd be right now if I was 16 years old with a 12-gauge and a couple boxes of shells in the trunk of my car in the school parking lot.
Well, I guess we just disagree. I just think it would be tragic if we turned around and allowed students at the university to carry guns and have the professors all carrying guns and have the class all loaded with guns. Because sometimes, you know, you get kind of emotional. And some people that are perfectly rational when they get their gun permit may be temporarily insane, you might say, and they decide to pop off at someone.
Well, you know, I don't believe that we've seen that in the colleges that do allow it. But I also know it was brought up before, Virginia Tech, where they could hide. That's what they could do. They couldn't defend themselves. They're sitting ducks. And that's what the gun-free zones really create, is they create a place that bad people can do bad things with, and where the consequences aren't as severe as quickly. So I would totally flip that the other way on you and say, what about Virginia Tech? If 2 guys in that class or 10 people or 20 people were allowed to carry, how many more lives would have been saved there?
Or how many more would have been killed? Because if you have guns going off in all directions, you don't know who the good guys are or the bad guys. And if you got a gun, you're going to start shooting. And you don't know whether
Really?
someone is a good guy or a bad guy. I mean, they're not. If they're uniform, fine.
I would recommend that if you don't think you have that capability, or that you don't carry, because I'm a much stronger believer in people. Just like when I drove down here on a 2-lane highway, I'm relying on that other driver coming the other way not to cross that yellow line. That's the only thing that stops him from hitting me head on. So I guess I should always swerve off onto the side then, because I'm afraid they're gonna cross that yellow line. You know, we can't live in fear on everything, Senator, I'm sorry.
Good
Appreciate
analogy.
your views. I disagree with
Good
it
analogy, I'm
completely.
using that one. That is, Jeff, thank you. Did you have a question?
Just a question for alleged counsel. To be clear, this bill does not allow, it leaves it up to the universities to decide whether
In the building.
carry will be allowed.
Yeah, under current law, universities are allowed to post their buildings. That is unchanged under this. In addition, there are a couple of other provisions in the law that allow for posting in university-related functions. In particular, there's a statute that allows for posting of special events for which some of the activities conducted by or on behalf of universities might qualify.
Jeff, thank you for your work and great testimony, and thanks for working on the range issue with me,
Thank
too. I
you,
appreciate
thank
that.
you all.
Next up,